So before we start lesson 13.8, this is the problem-solving lesson about misleading statistics. I'm going to read a little bit and try and teach you this before we jump in because it'll be too confusing without it. So Mr. Owen wants to move to a town where the daily high temperature is in the 70s most days. That's the key right there, most days. A real estate agent tells him that the mean daily high temperature in a certain town is 72 degrees. The other statistics about the town are given in the table. Does this location match what Mr. Owen wants? Why or why not? Use a graphic organizer to help you solve the problem. So we want a majority of the days to be in the 70s, not less than 70 degrees, and certainly not hotter than 79 degrees. It has to be somewhere between 70 and 79. So this is normally what you would write down. You don't necessarily need to write this down, but we should talk about it. So we need to find if the temperature in the town is usually in the 70s or most of the time or the majority of the time, more than half of the time. What am I going to use? I'm going to use the statistics from the table, and particularly how am I going to use those? I'm going to work backward from the statistics to draw conclusions about the distribution of data. So if we're supposed to draw conclusions about the data, this is what we're going to do. We're going to work backward from the stats. So this you could write down on your paper. The minimum high temperature is 62. And what that tells us is that the temp is sometimes less than 70. Okay? It has to be if the minimum temperature is 62. That means at least one day in the past year it was 62 degrees. So sometimes it is definitely less than 70, and because that only represents one day in the past year, it's likely that there's been more than one day where it has been less than 70. The max temperature is 95, and that means that the temp is sometimes greater than 80. And why am I talking about 80 here is because we wanted temperatures that are between 70 and 79. So if the temperature got up to 95 degrees, that means there's been probably more than just one time where the temperature was at 80 degrees or higher. The median is 69. So what conclusion can we draw based off these three things that we kind of identified in the table? The location does not match what Mr. Owen wants. Mr. Owen wanted majority days in 70. The median indicates that most days do not have a high temperature in the 70s. So the mean is a little bit higher. That's the misleading statistic. It makes it seem like it's a little bit warmer in this town than it actually is. I've made this to try and help you understand why the answer would be no to Mr. Owen's question. So 69 is the median. That means it's right in the middle. So I put the 69 here in black background and it's bold with an underline so you understand it. The lowest number or the lowest temperature we recorded is 62. So that means these X's here, these represent other numbers that could have been recorded in the town. We don't know the other temperatures, but we know there must have been other temperatures recorded that were somewhere between 62, this lowest number, and 69, which is the median. So everything in red here, that represents half your data. That's 50% of your data, and 50% of our data is less than 69, or technically less than or equal to 69. This blue area over here, these y's, I use the variable y to represent numbers that were greater than 69. And 95 was our hottest temperature. So it would make sense that there's probably other numbers in here because this is every temperature recorded for a whole entire year. There's probably other numbers in here that are between 69 and 95. So this blue area represents another 50% or another half. So half of this data is greater than, or technically greater than or equal to 69. So that is not most days. Going back to to what Mr. Owen wanted. He wanted most days to be in the 70s. Well, most days would have to be more than half. This right here is just showing you that at best we have half of the days in the 70s. But we know from that 95 degrees that there's probably days that are well above the 70s. So he definitely does not have a majority of days that are in the 70s.